Chapter 3. O Lucifer, son of the morning, and lord of the bottomless pit, roll back your celestial awning, thy thurible is lit. Hail thee that riseth in the east, behold the sacrificial feast. Amen.
Amen to that, agreed Tuppe, tucking a napkin into his shirt neck and rubbing his knife and fork together.
Does your adoptive daddy usually dedicate his dinner to the devil?
Anna whispered into the ear of Cornelius Murphy. Oh no. The tall boy gave his bandaged head a careful shake. I suspect he's just buttering up the Prince of Darkness in the hope of a favour.
Damned right.
Murphy Senior was seated at the head of the Murphy kitchen table, his lady wife at the foot, Tuppe, Cornelius and lovely Anna ranged variously in between.
It is my intention to summon forth all manner of banshees, bugaboo and bogey beasts, to raise divers demons, dibbucks, ghouls and gorgons, to conjure pidwidgeons and pandemoniacs from those regions which are forever night, and things of that nature generally.
To any specific end, Mr. Murphy? Tuppe inquired.
Indeed, yes.
The master of the house raised up his great chest and glared at the ceiling.
To unleash a great and terrible pestilence upon the head of Arthur Kobold, bad cess be unto him.
Amen to that also, said Tuppe.
Shall I be mother then?
Mrs. Murphy roars, brandishing an electric carver.
If I'd known that Daddy was planning to invoke his satanic majesty tonight, I'd have got a goat in, rather than this goose. Leg anyone?
Excuse me, Mrs. M. Tuppe cast a wary eye over the hapless fowl which graced the greater part of the dining table. But am I right in thinking that this goose is somewhat over-represented in the lower limb division?
You've got a lovely way with words, young Tuppe.
Mrs. Murphy leaned over and gave the small fellow an affectionate chooky cheek, nearly putting his eye out with the carving knife.
I wonder what they mean.
He's asking why the goose has so many legs,
her husband informed her.
Bred that way would be my guess. A chap I once knew used to breed chickens with 4 legs, so all his family could have one. I said to him, what do they taste like? And he said, I don't know, I've never managed to catch one yet.
Anna laughed politely. Mrs. Murphy hacked at the avian multiped, raising a fine cloud of feathers.
I knew I should have plucked this before I cooked it, but I was afraid to open the oven door in case it got loose again. You cooked it alive?
Anna was horrified.
Of course not, dear. I had the gas on for half an hour first.
Ah, said Cornelius, that would explain the smoke blackening on the walls and ceiling.
The firemen were very nice.
Mrs. Murphy passed legs around.
They said the house should be condemned. Your father ran them off with the mattock.
Tuppe examined the leg on his plate. About the goose?
It wandered into the back garden this morning. Well, trucked in, really. I think it must have escaped from Polgar's pet shop last night.
Tuppe pushed his plate aside. A recent near-fatal encounter with the furry fish was still fresh in his memory. Did I tell you I've become a vegan? He asked.
Oh,
went Mrs. Murphy.
I didn't know you could become a vegan. I thought you had to be born there.
That's a Venusian,
said her husband.
As in Venusian blind?
I expect so.
Jack Murphy shrugged.
Well, that's very nice, Tuppe. I'm glad you got yourself a proper job. Do you commute between the planets, or are you in the office?
In the office, said Tuppe, by the radiator.
That's nice. What goose did you say?
No thanks, but I'll have some of those sprouts, please.
Help yourself. You'll have to use your fingers, I'm afraid. My friend, Mrs. Cone, is having her son circumcised, so I've lent her my serving spoons.
For the do, afterwards, Jack Murphy explained to the open-mouthed Tuppe.
It's very kind of you to invite Tuppe and me to share your dinner, said Anna, raising her hand against another helping of goose.
I'll just stick to this broccoli if you don't mind. I'm on a diet. I was on a diet once.
Mrs. Murphy loaded up her husband's plate.
You had to eat nothing but soft furnishings. It was called the G plan, I think.
Cornelius forked up some spinach.
Your cheque bounced also, then?
He asked the daddy. Murphy Senior nodded gloomily and speared an asparagus tip with his fork.
It's not the principle of the thing that troubles me. It's the money. I was actually planning to pay Mike the mechanic for the car I gave you.
The Cadillac Eldorado. Cornelius chased peas around his plate.
About that.
It got dumped on, said Tuppe, from a great height. Would someone pass the petit pois, please?
Dumped on?
Jack Murphy fell back in dismay.
You lost the Cadillac.
In as many words, yes. Cornelius nodded sadly.
Kobold. In as few words, yes again. That does it. Roll back the lino, mother. We're chasing Behemoth tonight.
Not until everyone's finished eating, dear. Have some more courgettes, Anna. Try the yellow ones. I know they look like pig's willies, but they taste delicious.
Thanks, said Anna. These aubergines are excellent, by the way.
The beautiful Cadillac.
Jack Murphy sighed.
Arthur Kobold must pay for his transgressions.
He will. Cornelius munched upon a parsnip.
He can run, but he cannot hide. Can't he?
The daddy helped himself to more cauliflower.
He cannot.
Cornelius forked up some greens.
I have the plans for the reinvented ocarina. I intend to free Rune and bring Kobold and his cronies to justice.
I grabbed the booty, Tuppe put in. Pass the pimentos.
Good lads.
Murphy Senior gave his adopted son a hearty shoulder pat.
This news cheers me up no end. Now, if there's anything I can do to help, don't hesitate to ask. Is anything, as in anything?
Cornelius didn't hesitate to ask.
Anything. Then I need an ice cream van, please, and I need it by midnight.
The daddy's eyelids didn't even flicker.
Naturally,
said he, finishing up the last of his green peppers.
I shall see to it that you have one. More carrots? No thanks, I'm fine on carrots.
Cornelius smiled broadly.
But you might pass the crumb repetita.
About the ice cream van?
Anna asked. She, Cornelius and Tuppe were now ensconced in the daddy's garden shed. The meal had reached a successful conclusion with 3 puddings, a cheese tray, brandy and Turkish cigarettes. Unaware that her husband's cheque was going to bounce, Mrs. Murphy had cast aside her normal ecological convictions and spent lavishly at Safeway. I don't think I could manage any ice cream. I'm full.
It's the van I want, not the ice cream,
Cornelius told her.
The van has a public address system on the top for playing music, and if we pull out all the interior fixtures and fittings, then there'll be plenty of room.
For what?
For the booty!
Tuppe rubbed his tiny hands together.
We've got rooms A to Z, with all the entrances to the forbidden zones marked in it. We drive up in the van, play the music through the speaker system, a portal opens, we roar in, grab whatever we can, and make our getaway. A sort of interdimensional ram raid.
Mrs. Murphy was right, Tuppe. You do have a lovely way with words. Anna turned to Cornelius. She's an interesting woman, your mum. Did she really play bass for Jeff Beck on Hi-Ho Silver Lining?
She told you that?
Cornelius had the ocarina in the vise on the daddy's workbench and was worrying at it with the electric drill. The drill still lacked a plug, but as there were no power sockets in the shed, this didn't really matter.
She also said she was the 4th Beverly sister. She told me she was one of the 5 tops.
Tuppe rooted about amongst the interesting things beneath the workbench.
Why is there always a half-empty bag of solid cement in every shed? He inquired.
It's a tradition, Cornelius told him, or an old charcoal grill, or something.
He undid the vise, took up the ocarina, and blew drill dust from it.
All done, I think.
Anna leaned over to take a look. And you really truly believe that when you play this thing, these secret portals will open? Cornelius checked his handiwork against the route map.
They'll open.
They will, Tuppe agreed. Trust Cornelius, he knows what he's doing.
Thank you, Tuppe.
Don't mention it, Cornelius, but hearken, hearken, what is that I hear?
Tuppe cupped a diminutive palm to an ear of a likewise confection.
It's I'm forever blowing bubbles.
And indeed it was. It issued from the speaker system of a smart new ice cream van. A smart new ice cream van, which was even now drawing up outside 23 Moby Dick Terrace, home of the family Murphy. And stepping down from the cab was none other than the father of the house.
Fortune's always hiding,
he sang, and he smiled as he sang it. The taxi went west towards approaching midnight. The unmarked police car followed it at a respectable distance. The taxi took the slip road from the flyover and cruised down to the Chiswick roundabout. The unmarked police car followed it. The taxi turned left onto the Kew Road, went through green lights at Kew Bridge and rolled on towards Brentford. And the unmarked police car followed it. The taxi driver, one Terence Arthur Mulligan, checked his driving mirror. Same unmarked police car. Same upper-class git at the wheel. Was this police harassment? No, not yet. The unspeakable inspector was probably just checking to make sure he'd given the correct home address.
Well, he wouldn't be disappointed. Terence was homeward bound, because after all, he hadn't committed any crime, had he? OK, he had a bit of previous. OK, he had a lot of previous. But he was innocent of all charges here. He'd just been in the wrong place at the wrong time, seen a weird train, picked up some diamonds, got nicked. He told all this to Hovis, and Hovis had released him. So now he was going to go home and get his head down. And get his socks off, of course, because his feet were fair giving him jip. What with all those diamonds he'd stuff into his socks once his pockets were full. Terence was genuinely grateful that the boys in blue had failed to search his socks. Terence indicated correctly and turned into the back doubles of Brentford, careful not to lose his follower. He didn't want any trouble. He was a free man. The way he saw it, he had told the police the truth. He just hadn't told them all of the truth. For instance, he hadn't told them that he'd actually been in the right place at the right time, nor that he'd actually been acting under orders to clear up all traces after the train of Her Majesties passed through on its dreadful mission, nor that he, Terence Arthur Mulligan, was actually a member of Bollocks, the Black Order, London's Legion of Cab Knights, a top-secret organisation sworn to serve the hidden masters of the Forbidden Zones, nor that it was now his duty to return those diamonds currently in his possession and those in the hands of Inspector Hovis to these very hidden masters. Actually, the more Terence thought about it, he hadn't told the police the truth at all. But then there are some things you tell to policemen, and some you don't. Terence turned into Moby Dick Terrace and was nearly driven right off the road by an approaching ice cream van. Bloody hell! Terence swerved aside and bumped onto the pavement. He slammed on the brakes and drew to a halt right outside his own front door. Number 27. You bastard, bruv! Terence gripped the steering wheel and uttered a number of profanities, all ended with a reference to a certain bruv. There was good reason for this, as it happened, because the smart new ice cream van, the smart new stolen ice cream van, which was now vanishing into the night, belonged to none other than Terence's brother, one Reginald Bohemian Rhapsody Mulligan. Coincidence? Synchronicity? The chromium-plated megaphone of destiny? Who knows? And frankly, who cares? Just as long as it meant that something really exciting was about to occur. And it was. Oh, yes, indeed. It really, truly was.